Coming live from our studios in Belize City, this is the evening news on Love Television for Thursday, August 11th. We get you started with a look at the stories making the headlines today. William Mason read additional charges. Mason maintains his innocence, claims he's being set up. We have reactions on yesterday's historic ruling in the Belize Supreme Court. Caleb Orozco speaks of challenges he has faced in his fight. Recovery efforts continue in the hurricane-affected areas, and Belize Red Cross receives a donation to continue its work with hurricane victims. Just after 10 o'clock this morning, 4 of the 5 persons charged with the murder of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas on July 15th appeared before Magistrate Anderson in the Belmopan Magistrates Court to answer to additional charges. The men were read the charges, which entailed 2 counts of kidnapping and 2 counts of unlawful imprisonment. Prosecuting this morning's arraignment was Assistant Commissioner of Police Chester Williams.
Just arraigned Mr. William Mason and the other persons who had been charged with him in respect to the kidnapping of Mr. Friesen and his wife, which took place in May of this year. There was no difficulties as the prosecutor in the matter ensured that I crossed my T's and dot my I's before I came to court and ensured that everything was in order. And so everything just flowed this morning.
The charges are the result of a statement given by a Mennonite businessman, Lloyd Friesen, who claims that he and his wife Rosie were kidnapped and held against their will on May 31st, 2016 by Mason. Reports are that the incident was the result of a business deal gone wrong over a shipment of corn from abroad that Mason was to reportedly arrange to have imported. A 5th person was to be arraigned today on the kidnapping charges, but he did not appear to court as was agreed to. ACP Williams explained.
Mr. Ryan Rayburn is a part of the charge in respect to this matter. His name is on the court book. And from what I have been briefed by the investigator, is that Mr. Panton, who represents Mr. Rayburn, had promised that he would have been here this morning with Mr. Rayburn for him to have been arraigned. But unfortunately, that did not occur. So we will have to continue to look for Mr. Rayburn and have him arraigned in respect to this matter. I believe that he should have been arraigned long ago. But because of difficulties that the prosecutor had then arraigning him, he was released by the magistrate. So I was expecting to have him here today so that we could go through that matter, myself and Mr. Panton, in court before the magistrate and let the magistrate decide whether or not we have sufficient to have arraigned him.
As we had reported yesterday in our newscast, Mason's wife, Melissa Ferguson, was charged after she handed in herself on Monday, August 8th. The charges came as a surprise, as her attorney Richard Dickey Bradley explained.
On the allegation of a conspiracy to commit kidnapping, the laws of this country allows you to grant bail to any person accused of that crime. Our freedom is sacrosanct. You don't punish people because the police say, oh, he never come in as quick as he could have come in. Bail is not to punish anybody. Melissa Ferguson is saying over and over, and the other liars can bear that out, she's 100% innocent. She took part in no kind of conspiracy. And she will apply to the Supreme Court and ask a judge of that court to grant her her freedom so she could quickly get on her farm and she could go on with her business.
Love News had spoken to the CEO in the Ministry of Agriculture, Jose Alpuche, who told us that there was no application submitted for a permit, nor was a permit given for the shipment of corn. William Mason, Ashton Venegas, Ernest Castillo, and Terence Fernandez are to reappear in court on November 10th for disclosure. Tonight we take you back to the night of Friday, July 15, 2016. That is the night that the chapter on the Mason saga would begin unraveling after the head of well-known Pastor Llewellyn Lucas was found in a bucket inside the pan of a pickup truck. July 18 saw the authorities, including the Minister of National Security, John Saldivar, hold a press conference to discuss the reactivating of the gang suppression unit, but found that topic taking a backseat to the Lucas homicide. At that press conference, Deputy Commissioner of Police Russell Blackett gave the police's version as to what transpired and how the head was found, saying that they were on to William Mason for some time and the police had chosen to move in on him that night. As a refresher, we bring back that interview from July 18.
I must tell you that Mr. William Mason, who was found on Friday, 15th, with the head of the deceased, Mr. Llewellyn Lucas, was being sought for an investigation. I had briefed the HNCIB and the lead investigator looking at a specific case surrounding Mr. Mason when he was spotted 8:30 p.m. Friday in the city of Belmopan. The lead investigator was called in with the security from Belmopan. He was located at a bar in the city of Belmopan, and when a search was conducted, this is when we uncovered in a sack within a black color bucket the head of Mr. Lucas. I must tell you that when the investigator arrived, Mr. Mason explained that he could not find his key and he was very nervous. Hence the reason his driver's side window glass was broken. Search conducted.
In a telephone conversation that our reporter Rene Trujillo had with William Mason yesterday afternoon, Mason went into a little more detail on how the incident unfolded.
I got invited to go to the bar by a gentleman by the name of Jesus Castillo, and I ended up going to that bar with my staff, and it's a normal thing, you know. I mean, I haven't seen him for a while, he hasn't seen me for a while, and after I stopped by the bar, police came and started hassling everybody, and I was sitting down, and I couldn't see anything. And then I got up and intervened and says, what seemed to be the issue? And they never said anything, to the point where they want to search my car. And I asked them if they have a search warrant, and they said, we want to search your car. You know? And I go, whoa, it seems like I'm targeted here for something. You know? And when I went back for the key, my key wasn't at the table, and somebody disappeared with my key, and a lot of people went away from the bar. The whole place was packed with a lot of cars, a lot of SPUs, a lot of police, a lot of people came in, you know, things like that. I didn't even know how to clue what was going on, me and my guys.
So were you present when they claimed that they found that bucket in your vehicle? Were you around when they searched your vehicle?
I was very distant from that area. What happens is that they arrest all my guys and take my guys to the police station, and then they took me to my house to get the keys for the car. A second backup key, because we couldn't find the other key. So when I went to the house, my wife came down with the key, with the fob, and then we came back. So we were not present at the car at the time they found what they said they found.
Mason's wife, Melissa Ferguson, was charged for conspiracy to kidnapping, and for that she was remanded to the Belize Central Prison. William Mason spoke to the charges against his wife and has committed to release the evidence he holds.
I want to say for the record, anything happens to me and my wife, now they're targeting my wife, I will make public 3 videos that's going to go worldwide virally. My wife has nothing to do with anything whatsoever. Mr. Blackett has indicated to me in the past that he is going to arrest me, my wife, and take us to the gutters.
He has made it publicly to who?
What's that?
To who had he made that public?
To everyone at the police station, everyone around the scenes of the crime, wherever, however, even in his office. He had me in his office 3 times privately speaking with him for 2 hours at a time. Okay, he's targeting us for no reason at all. And with this police brutality and all this sort of stuff that's going on, it has to end.
One Mason was asked why he has been delaying the presentation of evidence that he has been claiming he has. This is how he responded.
The questions that a lot of people are asking out here right now, why are you delaying in revealing the evidence that you say that you have against these officers?
Because nobody wants me to talk. I'm locked down. I can't talk. I got a 5-minute phone call. Okay? My lawyers can't see me when they need to see me. I'm shackled, left, right, and center. I can't talk. I am completely in a cell, isolated from everybody.
Would you
I
be
can't
able-
speak. There's a lot I have to say. I don't care. I'm going to do this for the people of Belize. Okay? And the Belizeans need to know the truth about these corruptions and all these other things that they're doing.
Melissa Ferguson, up to this morning, was still locked up at the Belmopan police station, pending transfer to the Belize Central Prison. Her attorney Richard Bradley says they will be seeking bail. Belize made history yesterday when Section 53 of the Constitution was ordered to be amended by the Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin. The amendment will see Section 53 not applying to consenting sexual acts between adults of the same gender, as opposed to the penalty of 10 years in prison for persons engaging in carnal intercourse against the order of nature. The Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition is an organization that works for Caribbean populations that are most vulnerable to HIV infection or that have been forgotten or neglected along the way when it comes to healthcare programs. Dr. Caroline Gomez is that organization's director, who has told a Caribbean newspaper that she welcomes the ruling of the Belize Supreme Court regarding Section 53, and she believes that it will have positive implications for gay men in Belize and in the wider region. Dr. Gomez went on to say, and we quote, "We hope that this is the beginning of the overturning of these archaic, colonially imposed laws, which, as the judgment says, do damage to the dignity, rights, and freedom of expression of the gay community around the region and all others." End of quote. With Belize's Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin making history via his decision on the constitutionality of Section 53, one of the countries in the Caribbean that has been looking keenly at the judgment is Jamaica. On one hand, there is talk that the judgment in Belize will have legal implications for Jamaica, while others are saying otherwise. Bert Samuels is a prominent defense attorney in Jamaica, and according to him via an interview, he noted, and we quote, "Unlike a Privy Council decision which is binding, we can't say that it must be followed elsewhere. It is the first time in the Caribbean territory that any such sexual contact is deemed to be in breach of a person's constitutional rights." End of quote. Samuels went on to note via the Jamaican Gleaner that any potential impact from the ruling would have to be determined when the court hands down its written judgment. He also added that some consideration would have to be given to whether the law in Belize is the same as in Jamaica. There are some, according to the Gleaner, who have argued that the ruling has set a legal precedent and will influence common law. Meanwhile, the Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network has issued a statement in its territory declaring its hope that yesterday's ruling by the Supreme Court of Belize would persuade Jamaica to abandon its anti-buggery laws. The online article reads, and we quote, "The Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network has described the ruling as groundbreaking and potentially game-changing." It notes that 10 states in the Caribbean, including Jamaica, continue to cling to British colonially imposed anti-gay edicts. It argues that such outdated laws contribute to hate and violence against LGBTI people and exacerbate the HIV epidemic in the region. It says it is supporting the ongoing constitutional challenge of Jamaica's anti-buggery laws by Jamaican lawyer and rights activist Maurice Tomlinson. The network says although yesterday's ruling is not binding outside of Belize, it hopes it will be highly persuasive in Jamaica and other countries in the region. The Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network promotes the human rights of people living with and vulnerable to HIV/AIDS in Canada and internationally. End of quote. LGBTIQI community won a major victory yesterday as the Chief Justice ruled to amend Section 53 of the Constitution to exclude consenting sex between adults in private. Now the community is expectant of the government's response to the ruling, which according to Executive Director of UNIBAM, Caleb Orozco, will substantiate the ruling.
Nobody likes somebody to challenge status quo. In fact, it makes them insecure, it brings fears and misunderstanding. And in their society, violence is used as a social mechanism to put you in your place. There will always be one crazy cow, one vindictive person who will use me as a scapegoat and take whatever issues they have out of me. And so I will have to continue to be conscious about where I walk, where I drive, who I hang out with, where I go in terms of entertainment. And for now, that I don't go out in Belize City. I and I alone have the personal burden of my security, as I cannot count on safe system to provide that security for me. That is a challenge when it comes to this kind of judgment.
We'd just like to make a statement that was sent to by us by Mrs. Kim Simplice Barrow, who is the Special Envoy for Women and Children, and where she said it was a great day for Belize. It's a great day for human rights, one step closer to dignity and the respect we all deserve. Okay?
While the LGBTQI community had not been very vocal in Belize until the last 5 years, making their sufferings oblivious to the larger population, Caleb Orozco spoke about some of the obstacles that the community has faced over the years.
Us, the priority is a redress mechanism where immigration frontline officers must be more respectful to our people when they arrive at the airport and when they're applying for the immigration status. That's one. The second thing is there is a simple matter of you're living with your partner and the health system will treat you as if you're a pariah because, well, you're not blood and you are not allowed to make life or death decision of the person you're living with. I don't think our people deserve to be treated with the indignity of being shut out of the health concerns of their partner. That is unacceptable. When it comes to employment, our people have a basic aspiration to work, eat, and shelter just like everybody else. And in that regard, they must have the protection like every other citizen.
Orozco also touched the issue of hate speech and hate crimes against the community, stating that the population can no longer ignore that there are bias-motivated crimes against the community.
As to hate speech and crime, I've gotten my teeth knocked out. I've gotten my head was missed with a pint bottle with my next door neighbor. And all the court could tell me with that pint bottle missing my head was that I was not a victim. She could not acknowledge that there was hate in the act. There was no legal definition of hate. And while she found that person $200 for the crime of, I believe, threatening words and throwing a missile, the law does not acknowledge the fact that there are bias-motivated crimes.
According to Caleb, these reasons, among others, motivated the community to fight for their rights and challenge the law. Well, Caleb Orozco has been fighting for the rights of the community for many years. 6 years ago, he brought forward a case to challenge the Constitution, and because of that stance, Caleb has faced a lot of discrimination, including verbal and physical attacks. Yesterday at the UNIBAM press conference, Caleb stated that it was the women in his life who sustained the movement and intertwined the feminist movement with the LGBTQI movement.
people on the front line who sustain social movements are not people like me. The people who sustain social movements are people like my sister and my mom, who were there for me when I had nothing, who provided support when there was none, who screamed, yelled, and hollered when they had to, and who was unequivocal in the support of providing a system of support that the state refused to provide for over 2 decades towards me as an individual. I cannot say enough that in this country, where women are questioned for their leadership at cabinet level, straight down to various parts of society, I cannot say enough that we have to stop undervaluing the contribution of women in this country, because they are the invisible hand that transform the way we look in our society or at our society.
While some may view his strong stance and activism as unnecessarily putting himself in harm's way, Caleb stated that his activism is necessary to recover his humanity.
One of the things you learn is that, or for me, I've learned, is that when I walk the street, people see a sexual being first, or a sexual object first, and then a human being second. And that has been part of the problem, because it allows no empathy from any individual to see the basic concern that I have as a human being. But nevertheless, I've also gotten evangelicals on Facebook who, while they say they don't support my lifestyle, they do express their support for my right.
He spoke about the issues of personal security he continuously faces because of his brave stance.
Nobody likes somebody to challenge status quo. In fact, it makes them insecure, it brings fears and misunderstanding. And in their society, violence is used as a social mechanism to put you in your place. There will always be one crazy cow, one vindictive person who will use me as a scapegoat and take whatever issues they have out of me. And so I will have to continue to be conscious about where I walk, where I drive, who I hang out with, where I go in terms of entertainment. And for now, that I don't go out in Belize City. I and I alone have the personal burden of my security, as I cannot count on safe system to provide that security for me. That is a challenge when it comes to this kind of judgment.
While much strong opposing sentiments came from the churches yesterday, Caleb shared a story of welcoming Christian support.
I can remember a Christian woman about 60 years old. I thought she was crazy. I was walking to my mom near Civic Center, and normally I'm extremely defensive when I walk the street that far. But she essentially said, "Don't worry, I'm here to hug you, not hurt you." And I allowed her to hug me. And it was the strangest feeling, because it was the first time I realized that there are people of Christian faith who are not intolerant.
Caleb Orozco first filed a case challenging Section 53 of the Criminal Code of Belize, 1981, in July 2010. Yesterday, Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin ruled favorably to amend it. It was a major victory for the community. Belize is the first country in the Caribbean to amend that law. The City Emergency Management Organization continues its hurricane relief work in Belize City. Today, Councillor Philip Willoughby, who is in charge of CEMO, spoke about the assessments they have conducted and the materials in form of zincs and plywood that they have obtained.
We've went through the preliminary discussions. We have several assessment teams on the ground, of which are certified, qualified engineers. who are doing the inspection and checks, doing the verification. Once that is done, that goes back to our command center for the restoration committee, to the restoration committee. Thereafter, upon verification, we have a team now dispatched to do deliveries to drop off material, housing materials. These are self-help materials. This is not the initial outlay rollout to reconstruct. Since last night, we've picked up, I believe, something in the region about 400 zincs. We've picked up in same amount kind plywood.
Willoughby stated as well that the resources are being distributed with regards to no political parties. However, he stated that CIMO has to be accountable, and that is why the process takes long.
Technical team on the ground, and let's say that homeowner did not make it to the Human Development Office, or they weren't available at the time that the damage assessment team was on the ground, or they didn't go over to the constituency office. The technical people on the ground will not pass that house. They should not pass that house. They should do an assessment on that home, and those are and were the directives from the ministry and the National Emergency Coordinator. We have to be accountable to what is happening here. Like I said, there was an initial damage assessment team on the ground. Those reports came in, right? We now have the technical people now on the ground checking to see what is actually the damage, and based on what the damages are, then we come back after they have signed off on it and we make the deliveries, and these deliveries will be happening across Southside Belize City.
There are currently 170 people in shelters, majority of them in Belize City. Willoughby tells us what kind of aid the government is providing for them.
What the ministry is doing at this time, the minister briefed and stated that the person in shelters, homes will be rented for them, and immediately thereafter their house will be attended to and looked after.
Willoughby stated that a determined financial figure for housing resources could still not be provided, but he believes that they will be able to disclose the budget very soon. The University of Belize has expressed solidarity with all Caribbean neighbors during the hurricane season as they remain alert and prepared to lend support. According to a publication on the Bahamas, outreach has begun for the recovery efforts in Belize after it was hard hit by Hurricane Earl. In a letter dated August 3rd, UWI Vice Chancellor Professor Sir Hilary Beckles assured Prime Minister Dean Barrow of the support of the university experts in the areas of critical need, both in the short and longer term. The publication noted, and we quote, commenting on the matter, Vice Chancellor Beckles said, "In the face of the devastation brought on by Hurricane Earl, I was relieved to see the efficiency of the emergency management efforts and the resilience of the people. We know that there are difficult days ahead, but the UWI commits to partnering with the people of Belize to shorten the period of hardship and assure Belize's return to growth in the next several months." Dr. Luz Longswood, Pro Vice Chancellor and Principal of the UWI Open Campus, who has lived and worked in Belize for many years, has been charged with the responsibility of engaging Belize's leadership team and working to marshal the significant skills of UWI experts across the region towards a recovery cause. The UWI's outreach to Belize follows similar support extended to the Bahamas and Dominica last year, as they also faced the effects of natural disasters. These efforts are in line with the university's renewed commitment to activism in respect of all the major challenges facing the region. End of quote. The Belize Red Cross has received a donation of $2,000 from Protel BPI Limited to assist in its ongoing efforts to assist the victims of Hurricane Earl. CEO of Protel BPO, Kevin Herrera, handed over the check to the Director General of the Belize Red Cross, Lily Bowman. Bowman says the contribution will greatly assist in restoring the quality of life and dignity of the many persons affected. Debris cleanup and waste management have become an issue in Belize City. SEMA Coordinator Philip Willoughby issued an advisory for the public on how they plan to collect garbage this month.
Encouraging at this time homeowners to put out their waste so that we can better and properly coordinate the collection of those wastes. I know that, again, in our briefing this morning, Honorable Anthony Martinez mentioned that there will be a team designated on his side to deal with the demolition and removal of these homes as well as the property. So that will be absorbed from that angle through that initiative. Kind of put out your waste and the city will have to deal with the removal of those wastes.
Today we had a Women in the Workplace Forum. The purpose for the forum is to sensitize employers about many issues facing women. In particular, we were focusing on breastfeeding. The forum was scheduled for last week during the breastfeeding week, as World Breastfeeding Week is August 1st to 7th, but due to Earl we had to postpone for this week. So with that, we have employers from different organizations here, and the forum was to present the issues surrounding women and how they could create supportive environments to support the health of women.
Dr. Jorge Polanco, coordinator for the Institute of Nutrition of Central America and Panama and Central Point for PAHO in Belize, stated that while legislation to facilitate women's rights to breastfeed is important, sensitizing the public and private sector is more of a challenge we need to engage in.
Having these policies, the National Breastfeeding Policy, the strategy in the NCD plan is good, but it's not enough. I believe there's a need to dialogue with the private sector, with employers in general, including the public, for them to be aware of the rationale and to ensure that breastfeeding can happen, that the women are facilitated, that the women are informed, that it's a right that they have and that they are willing to do it.
Two villages in the Corozal district will get new polyclinics. Yesterday, Minister of Health Pablo Marin was the guest speaker at both groundbreaking ceremonies, one in Shunush village and the other in San Narciso village.
This polyclinic that you will have here, as I mentioned, it will serve approximately 6,500 people. It will help in the community around here, Louisville, San Narciso, San Victor, San Roman, Buena Vista, and the surrounding areas. This polyclinic will cost us nearly $900,000, but it's only the building itself. We have to equip the building. We have to put nurses, we have to put doctors, we have to put employees to take care of the building. So it's a bigger investment than only the $900,000 that you're looking at, or you will be looking at.
Guadalupe Longsworth is the Northern Regional Manager, and she spoke of how far they have progressed.
1 or 2 mobile visits a month and a community health worker to doctor, nurses, pharmacy, and some minor lab services on the spot, giving daily services. As a polyclinic, you will get 12 hours of service per day from Monday to Friday. A great jump indeed. The clinic will improve community health, reduce maternal and child morbidity and mortality, will be able to address the immediate needs of the communicable and non-communicable diseases, as well as the environmental needs of the communities. Therefore, greatly contributed in improving the quality of health care for man, woman, and children of Shunush, Progreso, Sarteneja, Copperbank, Little Belize, Fireborn, Newland, and other surrounding villages.
For villager Maria Elena Martinez, the polyclinic is a welcome addition.
At first we had a doctor, but as time passes, right now it's less doctors, Cuban doctors that are coming, so we have doctors for once in a month. And so this building would benefit because as we heard, we'll have doctors from Monday to Friday, and it will benefit most because when we don't have doctors, and if it's just a fever, they have to rush to Corozal or Orange Walk, and as this building will benefit. I am very happy with it, and because like the doctor said, whenever we have like in babies that are going to burn, this ferry is, we have to wait for a long time. And when we go to Orange Walk, sometimes the nurses there, they say we belong to Corozal, so they attend to us and immediately. And if we have it here, it will be a great for all the surrounding villages. Because although I want to help, but I cannot give medication since I am not a nurse nor nothing, so just a caretaker. So I am give thanks to God first that this now become a reality. Thanks to the minister and all the persons who participate in this to being a reality.
The clinics are expected to be completed by March of next year. A Taiwanese team will be in Belize next week to provide training on treating patients with renal failure. Nephrologist Dr. Kai Xiang Shu and dialysis nurse Ju Fen Chiang of Far Eastern Memorial Hospital will provide clinical training for Belize seed instructors in Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital and La Loma Luz Hospital. The instructors of the Chronic Renal Failure Project in Belize are Dr. Glenford Jones, Dr. Marvin Kamal, Michelle Casimiro, and Diodone Sai Tiamula. They are in Taiwan wrapping up their training before returning to Belize for clinical training, which will focus on clinical application and practical technique. Dr. Shu and Ms. Chiang will also meet with the Nurses and Midwives Council in Belize to discuss the certification of dialysis nurse and provide the extensive expertise of Taiwan's dialysis nurse education. Ms. Chiang especially will help the seed instructor develop the continuing education for dialysis nurse who are currently working in the dialysis unit. In addition, Dr. Shu will supervise chronic kidney disease quality improvement workshop. The training will be from August 15th to September 14th. 4 men from the Cayo district have been charged for drug trafficking. This morning, Special Branch San Ignacio Police, along with personnel from the Criminal Investigation Branch, conducted an operation in which they conducted a search in an area behind the Shawville area of San Ignacio town. Police say the men were seen in the bushes acting suspiciously. Police found a multicolored knapsack, a white crocus sack, and 3 black garbage bags, all containing large amounts of suspected cannabis. The men were detained and taken to the San Ignacio police station with the suspected cannabis. The individuals were identified as 24-year-old Kevin Frutas, 26-year-old Luis Ball, 21-year-old Roberto Leiva, and 23-year-old Francisco Gorosica. The suspected drug was weighed and amounted to 22 pounds. All 4 men were charged with drug trafficking. Also during the operation, the officers located a Toyota Corolla car that was reported stolen from a residence on 7th Street in San Ignacio in the early hours of Wednesday morning. No one was seen in the immediate area and the vehicle was returned to the owner. Over 165 children from Toledo participated in this year's Tide Environmental Camp. We hear more from correspondent Paul Mahong.
Toledo Institute for Development and Environment, TIDE's 10th annual summer camp was coordinated by Haley Robinson.
Tide Summer Camp has a different theme each year. This year's theme was Be the Change, and the main objectives of this camp was to help the children to develop an appreciation for their personal impact on the environment. Major lesson topics this year included freshwater resources, climate change, and sustainability. Camp would not have been possible without the help of 22 amazing volunteer facilitators from these local communities. The team of volunteers was made up of high school students, University of Belize students, and teachers. These volunteers acted as mentors to the children participating in the camp and further developed their own self-esteem and interpersonal skills by taking on this role. To complement the lessons and enforce this year's camp theme, each of the 7 camp locations went on a trip to a local sustainable farm. On these field trips, the children learned about how local farmers are sustainably growing food in a productive, profitable, and ecologically sound fashion. Children were very excited about environmental education and hands-on learning. Thank you to Mr. Santiago Cus of San Miguel, Mr. Eugenio A. of San Antonio, and Mr. Burton Callas of Maffredi for sharing their farms and inspiring our campers. And also a big thank you to UNICEF for sponsoring all camps.
Tides Camp Coordinator Haley Robinson also remarked that she was very pleased with the success of the 2 weeks environmental camp and the level of participation of the 170 children from Punta Gorda, Bella Vista, Big Falls, Bladen, Monk River, Trio, and Punta Negra. The participants at the environmental camp were from 7 communities that buffer protected areas that Tide manages in Toledo. Reporting for Love News, Paul Mahone, Punta Gorda.
Well, our thought conditioner for today is from Steve Maraboli. It reads, and I will quote it. It says, "Incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do have power over, instead of craving control over what you don't." This has been the evening news on Love Television. We invite you to log into our website, lovefm.com, for transcriptions of our news stories. Thank you for watching. I am Ernesto Vasquez.